My son-in-law thought I was nothing more than an aging relic, an old man too slow to notice, too blind to see. He believed I spent my nights asleep in my chair, deaf to the world, while he prowled like a thief through my home. More than once, I heard his footsteps in the hall outside my door, careful, calculated. I knew the sound of drawers being opened, of my belongings shifted by hands that didn't belong there. He thought I was helpless. That night, he learned otherwise. When he slid open my drawer, expecting the keys to my safe, the darkness betrayed him. His face drained of color, white at first, then a sickly yellow, like the yolk of a cracked egg left too long in the sun. His hands trembled. Whatever he saw in there, whatever truth he stumbled upon, shook him to the bone. And me? I lay perfectly still in the shadows, watching. A smile crept across my lips, hidden in the dark. Dinner that evening had seemed ordinary, quiet, until Charlie's voice shattered the peace. "So, David," he said, his fork hovering midair, "that safe upstairs. What kind of lock does it have?" The metal in my hand froze halfway to my mouth. Lauren choked on her water, startled. "Charlie, what kind of question is that?" she asked, her tone sharp, uneasy. But his eyes never wavered. They stayed locked on me, cold, relentless. There was hunger in them, something predatory, like a wolf circling prey. My chest tightened as I lowered my fork with deliberate care. "Just curious about security," Charlie continued, forcing a smile across his lips. "Break-ins around here have been getting worse." "Break-ins?" I almost laughed. 15 years in this neighborhood, and the wildest story had been Mrs. Henderson's cat stuck in a tree. "What break-ins?" I asked, voice calm but heavy with suspicion. He waved his hand like it was nothing. "Oh, you probably don't hear about them. They don't want to cause panic." Then he leaned forward, elbows digging into my dining table, invading my space. "But a man your age, living in a place this size, you must take security seriously." Lauren shifted beside him, uncomfortable. Dad's always been careful about locking up. But Charlie didn't stop.
"Right.
But what about insurance?" His voice carried a sharper edge now. "If something happened to you, God forbid, Lauren would need to know where you keep the important things. Don't you think?" The room seemed to shrink around me. I studied his face. The way his pupils widened when he spoke of my death. The restless tapping of his fingers against the table. He wasn't just curious. He was calculating. "I have everything in order," I said, finally. "Lauren knows what she needs to know." But Charlie leaned closer, his smile curling. "Does she know about the key?" The air turned heavy. Smoke without fire. Lauren blinked between us, confused. "What key?" she asked. "The one in your dad's drawer," Charlie answered smoothly. "The one that—" "How do you know about any key in my bedroom?" My voice cut sharper than I intended. For a second, his mask cracked. I saw it then, the real him. Cold. Ruthless. A predator pretending to be family. Then, as quickly as it came, he covered it with a performance of sincerity. "Last week. Headache. I was looking for aspirin. Lauren told me to check your bathroom cabinet, but I must have opened the wrong drawer. Sorry, didn't mean to invade your privacy." Lauren rushed to his side, nodding. "I remember. That headache was terrible." But I remembered too. He hadn't been sick. He had vanished upstairs for half an hour while we sat downstairs wondering. 30 minutes is long enough to do more than look for aspirin. "The aspirin has always been in the medicine cabinet," I said, low and even. "Always." Charlie's jaw tightened, just enough for me to see. "Must have been really out of it," he said, feigning weakness. But the damage was done. The rest of dinner limped forward, hollow. Yet Charlie never stopped circling back. Little questions dressed as small talk, about my bank, about the locks on my doors, about my daily schedule. His voice probing, his eyes dissecting. Every word, every pause felt like fingers pressing into wounds I hadn't realized were still open. When the last plate was empty, Lauren stood quickly. "Dad, you cooked. Let me clean." "I'll do it," I said, stacking plates. My rituals mattered. Washing dishes steadied me, gave rhythm to my thoughts. Tonight, I needed that rhythm more than ever. Charlie touched Lauren's shoulder, already steering her away. Come on, honey. Let him be. Their footsteps climbed the stairs, their door closing soon after. I stayed at the sink, my hands working automatically.
Weź. Rinse. Dry.
But my mind replayed every word, every glance. The way Charlie knew about a key he should never have known. The way he slipped death and inheritance into conversation so casually. Red flags waved in my memory like sirens I'd ignored too long. His unemployment story that never added up. The way he studied the house, almost like he was mapping it. The kitchen gleamed when I finished. Every glass, every plate returned to its place. Order restored. And yet something inside me had shifted. The house no longer felt like home. It felt compromised. Exposed. I climbed the stairs slowly, listening. At the top step, I froze. My bedroom door stood ajar. 2 inches of darkness, a sliver of secrets revealed. That door had been closed when I came down to dinner. Always closed. A habit I'd kept for decades. Lauren and Charlie were supposed to be in the guest room. There was no reason for anyone to be in my room. I stood still, hand gripping the banister, heart pounding. The silence pressed against me. No sound from the guest room. No movement anywhere. Just the creaks of an old house settling, and my own blood rushing in my ears. I pushed the door open, slow, steady, waiting for the wood to creak. It didn't. The hinges made no sound. I had oiled them myself years ago, yet stepping into that room felt like trespassing into a crime scene. My sanctuary had been touched, rearranged, violated. At first glance, everything appeared normal, untouched. The bed still neat, corners sharp, sheets pulled tight. My glasses rested exactly where I'd left them on the nightstand. The lamp angled the way I always preferred. But decades of habit had trained my eyes to see the small betrayals others would miss. The closet door stood open, not wide, just 4 inches. To anyone else, meaningless. To me, it was a scream in the silence. I always closed it completely. The slightest crack would gnaw at me all night, so I never left it that way. My gaze shifted to the dresser. The drawers no longer sat flush. The second from the top, where I kept the papers that mattered most, had been shoved back carelessly, the corner of a manila folder jutting out like a tongue mocking me. Heat crawled up my neck. My stomach clenched as I pulled the drawer open. The order was wrong. Too neat for chaos. Too careless for innocence. Folders shuffled, not destroyed, but rearranged. Insurance files tangled with bank statements. My will, always kept at the back, now sat disturbingly close to the front. And the small brass key, taped beneath the drawer lip where only I knew to look, was gone. I ran my fingers over the bare wood, once, twice, desperate for the familiar bump of tape. Nothing. Vanished. The safe key. The very safe Charlie had oh so casually questioned me about at dinner. My hands began to tremble. Not from fear. From rage. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't curiosity. Someone had entered my most private space with intent. Not fumbling, not random, but deliberate. Someone had known what to search for, what mattered. Someone had touched what only I should touch. I turned to the closet, where the safe stood anchored to the wall. Small but solid. The digital lock still blinked faithfully, but it didn't matter anymore. The key was out there, in Charlie's pocket. The air in that room felt heavy, suffocating. I stood surrounded by decades of my life, records, photos, mementos, and realized they were no longer mine alone. He had handled them, cataloged them, studied them. How many times had he crept in here, while Lauren and I sat downstairs, laughing over dinner unaware? How long had he been planning, memorizing, plotting like a thief casing a store? But Charlie had misjudged me. He had counted on my age, counted on my blindness, assumed I would never notice the shifted drawer, the missing key, the wrong folder. He thought I was another old man too tired to pay attention. He was wrong. I pushed the drawer closed with care, leaving everything exactly as I'd found it. If Charlie believed his violation was invisible, I would let him keep believing. Better that way. Let him play out his plan while I studied his moves. This wasn't unemployment. This wasn't temporary hardship. This was premeditated theft. Cold. Calculated. And the man plotting it was sleeping down the hall with my daughter. I turned off the bedroom light, forcing myself through the steps of my nightly routine. Washing up. Folding clothes. Pulling back the sheets. Every action suddenly felt staged, as if performed for invisible eyes. Was Charlie listening just beyond the wall? Did he suspect I'd noticed? I lay in bed, covers drawn, eyes on the ceiling, but sleep was impossible. My mind spun in circles. The house creaked. The trees outside whispered in the wind. The refrigerator hummed 2 floors down. Every sound sharpened into suspicion. At 11:47 p.m., the sound came. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Crossing the living room below. Not Lauren. Her steps were light, barely audible. This was Charlie. I held my breath, listening. Then, faint but clear, his voice floated up through the thin wood and plaster. "Yeah, it's me. Everyone's asleep." My chest tightened. Midnight. A phone call. Charlie whispering into the dark, confident no one could hear. I slid from bed slowly, careful not to let the mattress groan. The hardwood bit cold against my bare feet as I crept toward the vent in the floor. Old ductwork carried sounds strangely well. Tonight, it carried his betrayal. The old man's definitely loaded. His voice rose clearer, confident. I found bank statements, investments. Serious money. We're talking real wealth. The blood in my veins turned to ice. He wasn't alone. He was reporting. Tomorrow night, Charlie continued, Lauren's at book club, 7 to 9. Perfect timing. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. My hands shook as I opened the voice recorder. Evidence. I needed evidence. I already have the safe key, Charlie bragged. Snatched it tonight at dinner. The old fool keeps everything in there, cash, jewelry, more banking info. The bastard. I pressed record just as his voice sharpened, driven by something darker. Look, I know the timeline's tight, but my gambling debts aren't going anywhere. These guys, they don't wait. You know what I mean? This has to happen now. Gambling debts. Suddenly it all made sense. The story he never told in full. The lies. The desperation hiding beneath the charm. And now the danger. Desperation has a sound. It seeps into a man's voice, sharp and restless, like a cornered animal searching for a way out. That's what I heard in Charlie that night. Not just greed. Not just theft. But a man drowning in his own bad choices, clawing for air. David's just some lonely old widower, he sneered, voice dripping with contempt. Probably grateful for the company. Has no idea what's coming. Hell, he was asking me about security at dinner tonight, practically handed me the details I needed. The words burned like acid. Rage surged through me, hot and violent, pressing against my chest. The way he dismissed me, reduced me to nothing more than an easy mark. Just another stereotype. Some doddering old man too blind to see. I forced my body to stay still. My breathing even. My phone recording every poisonous word. Charlie's tone shifted, smooth again, calculated. The beauty is he'll never suspect family. Even if he notices something's off, Lauren will convince him he misplaced it. You know how old people are with memory. Old people. The insult cut deep. I was 66, not 96. My mind was sharper than it had ever been. Sharp enough to remember every single word of this betrayal. By Thursday we'll be gone, he continued confidently. I'll tell Lauren I got a job out of state. Something urgent. We'll be out before the old man even realizes what hit him. Silence followed, broken only by his laugh. That sound slithered under my skin cold, mocking. Maybe he should have been more careful about who he let in. Life lesson, right? The call ended. I heard him move through my home as if it belonged to him. Checking locks. Testing windows. His footsteps climbed the stairs, deliberate, quiet. I ended the recording and slipped the phone beneath my pillow. Through the crack in my still-ajar door, I watched a shadow pass in the hallway. Then the faint click of the guest room door closing. For a long time, I lay there staring into the dark, my pulse steadying as the weight of the truth sank in. Gambling debts. Dangerous men. An accomplice on the other end of that call. A plan already set in motion for tomorrow night, when Lauren would be at her book club. He would use her absence as cover, rob me blind, then disappear with her before she even knew the truth. This was bigger than the theft of a key. Bigger than the violation of my bedroom. This was betrayal at the deepest level.
He wasn't just targeting me.
He was manipulating my daughter's love, using her trust as a shield. But Charlie had miscalculated. He thought I was helpless. That I couldn't see beyond his act. He didn't know my history. 30 years as an insurance investigator had taught me how to recognize desperation, how to unravel lies, how to watch people until they revealed themselves. I dealt with con men, fraudsters, thieves who thought they were clever. Charlie was no different. If he wanted to play, I'd play. Only I wasn't the one bluffing. Lying there with his confessions saved on my phone, my mind drifted back to the beginning. 3 weeks earlier, the morning this invasion of my life began. It was a quiet Tuesday. Coffee cooling beside me, newspaper in hand, the kind of morning I'd grown used to since retirement. Then my phone rang. Lauren's name lit the screen. That name always softened me, always brought a smile. But her voice that day stopped me cold. Dad. I know it's early, but she broke off. I could hear the strain, the effort it took not to cry. Charlie lost his job last month, she finally said. We've been trying, but we're behind on the mortgage and… How far behind? I asked, already reaching for my checkbook. 3 months. A pause. Dad. I hate to ask, but could we stay with you for a while? Just until Charlie finds something new. Her relief when I said yes nearly broke me. My little girl, 32, proud and stubborn, forced by desperation to come back home. I would have given her anything. Of course she could come. Of course I'd help. But even then, something in me stirred. A doubt. Lauren told me Charlie had worked at the same company for 8 years. That the layoffs had been sudden. Unfair. But when I pressed for details, she faltered. Charlie handled the finances, she said. He was managing the job search. She trusted him. I should have pushed harder. I should have asked more. 3 days later, they arrived. A U-Haul bursting with boxes, too much for what was supposed to be temporary. Lauren hugged me at the door, tears in her eyes, whispering thank you again and again. But Charlie was different. His handshake was firm but cold, his eyes never resting on me for long. They darted instead across my home. The furniture, the pictures, the layout, like a man scanning inventory. Nice place, David, he said, his tone casual, but his gaze sharp. Must be worth a lot in today's market. Back then, I told myself it was small talk. Harmless curiosity. Now I knew better. He wasn't admiring. He was calculating. Measuring. Plotting. During that first week, I bet myself to make room for them. Cleared closet space. Adjusted my routines. Turned my solitude into a shared rhythm. Lauren slipped back into the house easily. She knew my ways, knew my habits. But Charlie? He asked questions. Too many. About my neighborhood. Which neighbors were home during the day. What my bank routines were. Where I shopped. Whether I kept cash in the house. Innocent on the surface. But never innocent at all. I remembered the morning he offered to drive me to the bank. Save you a trip, he'd said. I need to update my unemployment address anyway. But once inside, he lingered. Standing too close at the teller window. Watching as I made my deposit. Memorizing. Calculating. Even then, I should have seen it. Charlie's questions should have set off alarms. The casual way he asked about my accounts, about whether I had a safety deposit box, about the kind of assets I kept. Each question slid past me at the time, disguised as small talk. I let them. Because I wanted to trust him. Because my daughter loved him. And because I loved my daughter. But the signs were all there. The gambling. The calls he took at odd hours, always stepping outside or closing a door behind him. He'd say it was recruiters, potential employers. But when he came back inside, I saw it. the stiffness in his shoulders, the pacing, the silent storms that followed. The mail should have told me the rest. For 2 weeks, letters had arrived with his name on them. Credit cards, collection notices, agencies I had no reason to know. I told myself they were routine updates after his layoff. In truth, they were threats, final demands, warnings closing in. Lauren knew none of it. She trusted him completely, swallowed every excuse. When he said the market was tough, she believed him. When he told her he had interviews lined up, she encouraged him. She carried his weight without seeing what it really was, chains of debt pulling both of them under. She didn't realize her husband had turned her childhood home into a target. That she was the shield, the camouflage, the innocent cover. My trusting daughter was being used as the key to the lock. The thought ripped me back into the present. Back to my dark bedroom. My phone hidden beneath my pillow, Charlie's voice trapped inside it, damning him with his own words. 12 hours from now, he meant to rob me. 36 hours from now, he meant to disappear with Lauren, dragging her into the wreckage of his life. But he had misjudged me. Fatally. He thought I was lonely, easy to fool, grateful for company. He thought I was blind. I wasn't. I was deliberate. I was watchful. And I carried 30 years of experience dissecting liars and thieves. Men like him always thought they were the smartest in the room. Men like him always slipped. If he wanted to steal from me, let him try. Tonight, he would discover that not every old man is harmless.
Some of us still know how to bite.
At 6:30, I rose as always. The recording on my phone felt like a fever dream, but the timestamp told the truth. 12:47 a.m., Charlie's voice clear and cocky, plotting his betrayal. I went downstairs, set the coffee maker, cracked eggs into the pan.
Toast. Juice.
The routine as steady as a heartbeat. I wanted the morning to feel ordinary, controlled. Lauren appeared first, hair messy, robe tied loosely. She yawned and smiled the way she used to when she was a teenager stumbling into the kitchen. "Morning, sweetheart," I said warmly. "Like a baby," she replied, her voice soft with gratitude. "Thank you again for letting us stay here, Dad." Charlie arrived 20 minutes later, showered, looking fresher than he had in weeks. His eyes carried confidence, the kind of confidence that comes with a plan already in motion. "Beautiful morning," he said, slipping into his chair. "What's everyone got planned for today?" I placed his coffee down carefully. "Oh, the usual. Might run some errands later." His gaze sharpened. "What kind of errands?" "Odds and ends. Hardware store. Maybe the bank." A twitch flickered near his left eye. Barely visible, but I saw it. "The bank," he asked. "Everything okay, financially?" Lauren chuckled lightly. "Dad's always been paranoid about checking his accounts in person. Old habits." "Not paranoid," I corrected gently. "Careful. You can't be too careful these days." Charlie jumped at the line, too eager. "Absolutely right. Identity theft. Online scams. It's a jungle out there for someone your age." There it was again. The dismissal dressed as concern. "Someone your age." He leaned forward, his smile practiced. "Speaking of careful, I've been thinking about your home security. This neighborhood seems quiet, but you never know." "It's perfectly safe," Lauren interjected. "Dad's lived here 15 years without a problem." But Charlie wasn't listening to her. His eyes stayed fixed on me. "Still, a man living alone. Valuable things in the house, it pays to be prepared. You mentioned that safe upstairs. Is that where you keep your important documents?" I took a slow sip of coffee. "Some things, yes." "What about cash?" he pressed. "I mean, if banks went down, if something happened, it's smart to have cash on hand. Emergency funds. Easily accessible." The arrogance stunned me. He was sitting at my table, eating food I cooked, asking me to map out my assets like I was an inventory sheet. "I have what I need," I answered simply. He tried a different angle. "You mentioned being a heavy sleeper last week. That's good. Older folks, sleep is important." I hadn't mentioned anything of the sort, but I nodded. "Oh yes. Once I'm out, I'm gone. Dead to the world." "Especially lately." I've been so tired in the evenings. That's normal, Charlie said quickly. At your age, the body needs more rest. Lauren shot him a sharp look. Charlie, that's rude. No, he's right, I said smoothly, leaning into his illusion. I usually take something to help me sleep. Knock me right out till morning. I saw it then, the subtle drop of his shoulders, his posture loosening. A predator convinced his prey was weak.
Perfect.
Let him think I'd be unconscious tonight. I stood, clearing the dishes. Well, I'll let you two plan your day. I'll probably turn in early tonight. All this family activity has me worn out. Lauren smiled warmly. That sounds perfect, Dad. You deserve the rest. Charlie helped carry plates, and I caught the glance he couldn't quite hide. Toward the stairs. Toward my bedroom. His mind calculating. Measuring. You know, he said casually, I might stay up late tonight. Watch some TV. In the living room. I'm a night owl. Of course he was. I smiled. Make yourself comfortable. The remote's on the coffee table. After breakfast, Charlie announced he had calls to make about job prospects. Lauren went upstairs to organize the guest room. My window had opened. I think I'll run those errands now, I told them. You two enjoy the quiet. As I eased the car down the driveway, I caught sight of him.
Charlie.
Watching me. Not from the guest room, but from my own bedroom window. His presence there made my grip on the steering wheel tighten until my knuckles went pale. He was rehearsing already, mapping out his entrance, tasting his victory before the crime. Tonight couldn't come soon enough. The hardware store was my first stop, but it wasn't just about supplies. It was about strategy, about focus, about rehearsing every possible angle in my mind. Charlie had revealed his plan over breakfast with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Tonight, while I lay drugged and snoring like a helpless old man, he would slip into my bedroom, find the brass key he'd glimpsed weeks ago, and crack open my safe. In his head, it was simple.
Clean.
Effortless. But what he didn't know was that the game had shifted hours earlier. At 5 that morning, after staring at the ceiling all night with the echo of his phone call still in my head, I'd moved the key. No longer tucked in the dresser, where he thought it lived. No longer within reach of his greedy hands. It was now buried in my kitchen junk drawer, hidden beneath a mess of rubber bands and forgotten twist ties. He could tear my bedroom apart until his fingers bled raw.
He'd find nothing.
But that wasn't enough for me. Not anymore. I didn't just want to stop him. I wanted him exposed. I wanted proof so undeniable that even Lauren's blind faith couldn't excuse him. I needed him caught in the act, stripped of his lies, humiliated by his own arrogance. I found what I needed in the last place anyone would expect, the party supply aisle. Between pastel balloons and novelty banners, I saw it, a small confetti cannon, the kind people use for gender reveals. Spring-loaded, foolproof, designed to turn a quiet room into chaos in less than a second.
Perfect.
I grabbed it, and then I saw the glitter. Silver and gold.
Ultra fine.
The kind that clings forever, that burrows into skin, into fabric, into every corner of a room and refuses to leave. If Charlie wanted to be a thief, he'd wear the uniform. Sparkling, marked, branded by his own attempt at betrayal. Back home, the house was quiet. A note on the counter in Lauren's handwriting told me everything I needed. Gone grocery shopping with Charlie. Back by 2 p.m. Love you.
Perfect.
3 hours. Down in my basement workshop, I laid out the cannon on my workbench. The design was so simple, it was almost elegant. A spring, a plunger, a trigger. I stripped out the colorful paper and poured in my glitter mixture, measuring carefully. Enough to blind him in the moment. Enough to coat his face, his hands, his shirt. Enough to leave him shining with guilt long after the act. But the real trick was calibration. It had to fire only when he reached for the key, not when he casually brushed the drawer. I tested it with a wooden spoon, adjusting tension until I found the sweet spot. Then came the installation. Precision work. I nestled the cannon deep in the dresser drawer, aligning the trigger at the exact spot where the key had once rested. To any glance, the drawer looked normal. Old photographs, buttons, odds, and ends that meant nothing. But anyone who reached deeper, searching with purpose, would find more than they bargained for. I tested 3 times with a ruler, simulating Charlie's greedy hand digging for treasure. Each time the glitter erupted in a storm, bursting outward, coating everything in its path.
Perfect.
Reliable. Devastating. The final touch was the decoy. I placed an old luggage key right near the front, gleaming just enough to lure him in. He'd see it, believe he'd struck gold, and reach with confidence. That reach would trigger everything. The beauty of it wasn't just the mechanics. It was the psychology. Charlie expected silence.
Stealth.
He imagined himself ghosting through my room, in and out without a trace. Instead, he'd trigger an explosion that would turn him into a walking firework, a thief painted in silver and gold. Just like a bank robber caught by a die pack. By 1:45, the trap was perfect. The drawer looked untouched. Innocent. Waiting. My workbench was cleared, the evidence hidden. And in just a few hours, Charlie would walk into this room expecting to find a weak, defenseless man. Instead, he'd step into justice. I heard car doors slam outside. They were home. Lauren and Charlie, back from their little shopping trip, arms probably full of groceries.
Laughing.
Domestic. Like nothing was wrong. Like betrayal wasn't pulsing under the surface. I closed the drawer softly and went downstairs with a grandfather's smile pasted on my face. Tonight, the stage was set. After lunch, I stood and announced lightly, "I need to run a quick errand. Won't be long." Lauren looked up from unpacking bags. "Need help with anything, Dad?" "Just the electronics store." "You two relax. You've done enough for today." Charlie barely lifted his eyes from his phone. But I caught it, the flicker, the calculation, the confirmation that the old man had routines, patterns, blind spots. He thought he knew me. He thought I was easy. The clerk at Best Buy was a young man named Marcus. Patient. Helpful. He didn't even flinch when I told him I needed a camera for my bedroom. "A lot of break-ins in your area?" he asked. "Something like that," I said. I told him what I needed: small, discreet, wireless, night vision, motion detection. Marcus walked me through options, demonstrating features, showing me how the app worked in real time. I chose a compact model, no bigger than a deck of cards, with 8 hours of battery and magnetic mounting.
Perfect.
A hidden eye that would capture everything. I paid cash. Tucked the box into the passenger seat like it was a weapon because that's what it was. Evidence. The piece that would nail Charlie to the wall. Back home, they were curled up on the couch, watching TV like any normal couple staying in a family home. A picture of comfort. A picture of lies. "Just going to rest for a bit," I told them, climbing the stairs. All this running around's caught up with me. In my room, I shut the door, opened the box, and got to work. The camera had to be flawless. Invisible, silent, merciless. It needed to catch everything. Charlie creeping toward my dresser, the moment his fingers reached for what he thought was the key, and the blast of glitter that would baptize him in humiliation. A thief's coronation, preserved forever. I tested angles through the app on my phone, walking back and forth across the room as if I were Charlie. The top of the bookshelf, wrong.
Too high, too steep.
Behind the lamp, too obvious. Anyone glancing over would see it. Finally, I found it. The nightstand. I tucked it between 2 thick hardcovers, their spines black enough to swallow the camera whole. From there, the lens pointed cleanly across the room, framing both the dresser and the heart of the space. The magnetic mount clung tight, immovable. Unless someone was deliberately searching for surveillance, it might as well have been air. I spent 20 minutes fine-tuning. A tilt here, a fraction of an inch there. Through the app, I checked again and again. The coverage was perfect. The motion sensor was dialed, just right. Sensitive to the sound of footsteps, but not fooled by the creaks of an old house. I switched it to motion-only mode to save the battery. The readout promised at least 8 hours. Enough to cover the window of Charlie's plan. Enough to see him through. I tested night vision. Turned off the lights, shut the door, and stared at my phone. The room bloomed in infrared clarity.
The bed.
the dresser, the drawer. Every detail sharp. If Charlie stepped foot in here, his face would glow on my screen like a confession. I checked the microphone, whispered a few words. The playback was crisp, every syllable distinct. If Charlie muttered to himself, panic, greed, fear, I'd have it. Not just video. Not just glitter. Words. Evidence. The elegance of the setup struck me. He'd enter expecting silence, darkness, power. Instead, he'd walk into a stage lit by technology, every step recorded, every gesture preserved. The glitter blast would be the finale, but the true masterpiece would be his downfall captured from the very first second. I rearranged the books, covering every edge of the camera until it vanished into the room's background. Then I stepped back, looked at the space with a stranger's eyes. Just an old man's bedroom. A nightstand stacked with books. A dresser filled with memories. Innocent.
Deceptive. Deadly.
From downstairs came the low murmur of voices. Lauren.
Charlie.
Talking quietly, like a couple easing into the evening. Maybe laughing, maybe planning. Charlie calculating the hours, rehearsing his theft as if it were already done. He didn't know his window of opportunity was nothing but a trap door, ready to swing beneath him. I checked the feed one more time. Crisp.
Steady.
Battery full. A red recording at the corner of the screen. Tonight, Charlie would expose himself. And I'd have every frame in high definition. Dinner passed without sparks. Lauren filled the table with chatter about neighborhood changes, her voice light, easy. Charlie scrolled on his phone, restless, barely pretending to care. I played my part, weary grandfather, nodding, smiling, pushing food around my plate. By 8 o'clock, we drifted into the living room. Lauren curled on the couch with a novel. I sank into my old armchair, rubbing my temples for effect. Long day, I muttered. Think I'll turn in early. That's when Charlie moved. He snapped his eyes up from his phone. Actually, David, he said, his tone wrapped in fake casualness, I was hoping we could share a drink first. A little bonding time. Father-in-law, son-in-law. The words were smooth, but the timing gave him away. He'd been waiting, practicing. That's sweet, Lauren chimed in without looking up. You two should spend more time together. Charlie leaned forward, pushing harder. I was thinking about that bottle of Macallan I saw in your kitchen. Premium stuff. Perfect for a nightcap. I kept my face steady, but inside, I was fascinated. Every detail, the timing, the mention of the expensive whiskey, it was rehearsed. He'd planned this since breakfast. He wasn't after a drink. He wanted me compromised. I appreciate the thought, I said evenly. But I'm on medication. Doesn't mix with alcohol. Charlie's smile froze at the edges. Just for a second. Come on. One small glass won't hurt. We're practically family. Really, I should avoid it entirely. Lauren finally looked up.
Dad's right.
Doctor said his blood pressure meds don't mix well. But Charlie pressed on, his persistence naked. What about just a toast? A tiny sip. To celebrate, he hesitated, searching for an excuse. To family, that persistence told me everything. A normal man would have dropped it after the first refusal. He couldn't.
He needed me to drink.
Needed me drugged, unconscious, defenseless. I'll tell you what, he said suddenly standing. I'll pour myself a glass, and we'll just sit and talk. No pressure. He slipped into the kitchen. I heard the rattle of cabinets, the clink of tumblers. When he returned, he held 2 glasses. One full, one nearly empty, a faint splash glinting in the lamplight. He extended it to me, his hand steady, his smile fixed. Changed my mind, he said. Just a splash. Barely a teaspoon. For the toast. The whiskey sparkled amber. Perfectly harmless to anyone else. But I'd worked 30 years chasing fraud, lies, desperate men. And desperation always showed its cracks. Charlie, I said quietly, I really can't. One sip, he urged. Lauren, tell your father it won't kill him. Lauren froze, glancing between us. She felt it, the tension she couldn't name. If Dad says no, maybe you should respect that. Charlie's jaw twitched. The mask slipped. For the briefest second, I saw him bare. Frustration, calculation, a flicker of panic. Then it was gone. You know what? I said, rising slowly, carefully. I'm more tired than I thought. I'll take one of those pills and call it a night. And in that instant, his posture shifted. Sleeping pills, I told him, letting my voice drop with weariness. Doctor prescribed them last month. Strong ones. Knock me out cold until morning. The change in Charlie's face was immediate. Relief washed over him like a tide finally breaking. He smiled, almost too quickly. That sounds perfect. You need your rest. Lauren leaned in and kissed my cheek. Sweet dreams, Dad. See you in the morning. I climbed the stairs with the deliberate slowness of age. My hand clung to the railing. My shoulders sagged. At the landing, I turned back down the stairs, forcing a faint smile. Don't stay up too late, you two. Charlie, help yourself to anything in the kitchen. Thanks, David. Sleep well. His voice carried an ease I didn't miss. He thought his plan was safe. In my room, I went through the motions of bedtime. Changing clothes, brushing my teeth, turning back the covers. But every action was theater. Behind the act, I checked what mattered. The angle of the camera, the readiness of the glitter trap, the tiny red light glowing on my phone. Everything was perfect. I turned off the lamp, but I didn't get under the sheets. Instead, I stretched out on the bed fully clothed, positioned so the crack in the door gave me a slice of the hallway. From downstairs came the hum of the TV, their low voices blending into background noise. Then, after a while, Lauren's footsteps on the stairs. A door closing softly, the guest room. Charlie stayed behind, waiting, calculating, counting down the minutes until the pills took effect. I checked my phone. 9:47 p.m. The camera feed glowed in crisp night vision. My room, empty, quiet, staged like a trap waiting for prey. The house settled into silence. I didn't move. Hours passed. At 2:43 a.m., it came, the creak of the first stair. I'd been lying there for hours, breathing slow and steady, rehearsing unconsciousness. My phone screen showed the same view. The waiting dresser, the waiting trap. Charlie climbed carefully, almost gracefully. He avoided the steps that groaned, steps he'd memorized during 3 weeks of living here. He knew the sounds of this house like a burglar knows locks. Outside my room, the floorboard whispered. Then nothing. He was listening, testing, making sure the pills had buried me deep. I let my chest rise and fall with practiced rhythm. The performance of a lifetime. My daughter's future hung in the balance. The doorknob turned. Slow. Deliberate. A silhouette filled the doorway, a shadow cut from darkness and backlit by the faint nightlight in the hall. He froze there, staring at me. 30 seconds. 40. Watching. Waiting. My body lay motionless, the perfect imitation of sedation. Satisfied, he stepped inside. Now his movements changed, quiet, confident, predatory. He wore dark clothes, blending into the room. But I could track him by the small sounds, the shift of shadow, the rhythm of intent. He approached the dresser like a man approaching destiny. 3 weeks of planning had led him to this moment. He knew exactly where the prize was. His hand went to the second drawer, the one with the false key, the one with the surprise. The drawer slid open. For an instant, his body language screamed victory. He reached in, fingers grasping for brass salvation. Then, boom! The confetti cannon exploded with a glorious roar, a blast that shook the silence like a firecracker. Gold and silver glitter erupted in a furious cloud, coating Charlie from head to toe. It sprayed through the room like celebratory shrapnel, filling the air with shimmering chaos. He stumbled back, choking out curses, flailing at the glitter raining down. His hair, his face, his clothes, all drenched in sparkling humiliation. He looked less like a thief and more like a human piñata, a walking disco ball in the wreckage of his own arrogance. What the hell? He gasped, swiping at the glitter that only spread further with every movement. I came to life with Oscar-worthy timing, jerking upright, fumbling for my lamp. What on earth? My voice cracked with confusion. What was that noise? The light blazed, revealing him in full ruin. He stood frozen by the dresser, covered head to toe in glitter, the false key clenched in his hand. Charlie? I blinked, feigning bewilderment. What are you doing in my bedroom? His mouth opened.
Closed.
Opened again. No sound came out, only glitter cascading from his hair like falling snow. I heard a noise, he stammered. Thought someone might be breaking in. Breaking in? I glanced around, wide-eyed. And you ended up sparkling? The sight finally hit him. He looked down at himself, taking in the ridiculous spectacle. His body was a canvas of silver and gold. He resembled some rejected Christmas ornament. There was some kind of trap, he muttered, weak. Trap? I tilted my head, innocent as a child. In my bedroom? From the hallway, a door banged open. Quick footsteps.
Lauren.
Her voice carried sharp worry. David? What's happening? Charlie's eyes widened in panic. How could he explain this? The glitter.
The key.
The hour. There was no story that could erase the truth now. He was caught, literally glitter-handed, by the very man he thought he could rob blind. I allowed myself the faintest smile as Lauren's footsteps hurried closer. Justice, I thought, has never sparkled so brightly. Dad? Are you okay? Lauren appeared in the doorway, robe tied hastily around her. She froze when she saw the scene, her father in bed, the lamp glowing, and her husband standing like a thief drenched in confetti. I sat upright in bed, blinking like a man startled out of heavy sleep. My confusion looked real. My concern sounded real. That was the point. Charlie stood frozen beside my dresser, caught in the act, glitter dripping from his body as if he had been dunked into the wreckage of a craft store explosion. He glittered under the lamplight, absurd and guilty at once. What in the world? Lauren's voice broke, half caught in disbelief. Her eyes swept the scene, landing on her husband. Charlie? Why do you look like a Christmas decoration? Charlie's mouth worked soundlessly, opening and closing like a man drowning for words. Each movement sent more glitter cascading from his hair, falling gently to the carpet, settling like mocking holiday snow. There was a noise, he muttered at last, voice strained, reaching for control that wasn't there. I came to check on your father. At 3 a.m? Lauren's tone sharpened, cutting through the room like glass. And you ended up covered in, what is that? Glitter? Some kind of security device, Charlie blurted, swiping frantically at his sparkling shirt. It went off when I opened the drawer. Lauren's eyes flicked from him to the open drawer, then to me. Dad, do you have security devices hidden in your furniture? I shook my head slowly, maintaining my mask of weary confusion. Not that I know of, sweetheart. I was sound asleep until that explosion woke me. Her eyes narrowed. The suspicion in her voice was new, protective, sharper than I'd ever heard it. Then why were you in his dresser drawer, Charlie? The weight of the question made him falter. His story unraveled in real time. I was looking for something to help you sleep. You were restless earlier. I thought David might have some extra sleep aids. Lauren arched her brow. In his bedroom dresser? Really? Charlie gestured toward the drawer, weakly, more glitter falling to the floor with every move. I thought maybe. Charlie, I said gently, voice laced with quiet steel. My medications are in the bathroom cabinet. They've always been there. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Lauren's expression shifted as her mind worked, confusion giving way to something colder, harder. So let me understand this, she said, each word deliberate. You left our bed at 3 a.m, came into my father's room while he was sleeping, and opened his private drawer, looking for medicine you knew wasn't there? It's not like that, Charlie insisted, panic lacing his words. Then what is it like? Lauren's voice rose, trembling with both anger and disbelief. Because from where I'm standing, It looks like my husband was going through my father's belongings in the middle of the night. Charlie's desperation deepened. Lauren, you have to understand, I was just trying to help. Help with what, exactly? I interjected, calm but piercing. What were you hoping to find in that drawer? His eyes flicked wildly between us. The question hovered in the air like a blade. He swallowed hard. I was confused. I thought I heard someone breaking in. Breaking in? Lauren repeated, flat and cold. So, your first instinct was to search my father's dresser? I wasn't searching. Then what do you call opening his drawer? Charlie's glitter-stained hands clenched into fists, frustration and fear boiling together. Why are you interrogating me like this? I'm your husband. That word, husband, landed like a stone between them. Lauren recoiled slightly, as if the very claim weighed her down. I saw the moment her face shifted. The last traces of trust in her eyes dimmed, turning into something else. Protective suspicion. Not for him. For me. You're right, she whispered, voice steady, controlled. You are my husband. Which is exactly why I'm asking you to explain why you're standing in my father's bedroom at 3 a.m, covered in glitter, with your hand in his private drawer. Charlie's body sagged. He looked trapped, cornered, drowning in the evidence that fell from his clothes with every breath. I can explain everything, he said desperately. Then please do, Lauren demanded, arms crossing tightly over her chest. Because right now, I'm very confused about what my husband is doing in here. I watched her face. Watched the moment when her protective instincts shifted entirely. She was no longer shielding him.
She was shielding me.
Charlie saw it too. His voice cracked with panic. Lauren, you have to trust me. But trust, once fractured, doesn't return with words. And glitter doesn't lie. Lauren's gaze held steady, her mind working, processing, analyzing, forcing herself to face what her heart resisted. Charlie, she said finally slowly, I need you to tell me the truth.
Right now.
What were you really doing in my father's bedroom? He opened his mouth. Nothing. I knew the moment had arrived. My daughter deserved more than his excuses. She deserved the truth. Lauren, I said softly, reaching for the phone on my nightstand. There's something you need to hear. Charlie's face went pale under the glitter, his body stiffening. David, don't. Don't what? Lauren's voice cut in sharply. Don't what, Charlie? I unlocked my phone, holding it up. Sweetheart, I recorded something last night. A conversation. You should hear it. No, Charlie said quickly, his voice laced with desperation. Lauren, whatever he thinks he heard. Be quiet, Lauren snapped, her eyes never leaving me. Her voice had the sharp edge of finality.
Dad, play it.
I pressed the button. Charlie's voice filled the room, captured forever in crystal clarity. Yeah, it's me. Everyone's asleep. The old man's definitely loaded. I found bank statements, investment portfolios, the whole thing. We're talking serious money here. Lauren's face went still, her expression breaking apart as the words sank in. From the phone, Charlie's voice continued, cold, calculating. Tomorrow night, Lauren's going to her book club meeting. She goes every Tuesday, 7 to 9. Gives us perfect timing. Stop it, Charlie shouted, desperation cracking through. Lauren, I can explain. Shut up. Her voice was deadly calm, shaking only with the weight of betrayal. Just shut up and let me listen. Charlie's voice kept spilling from the speaker. I already have the safe key. Grabbed it earlier today while they were at dinner. The old fool keeps everything in there.
Cash.
Jewelry. Bank records. He practically hands it to me on a silver platter. Lauren's hand flew to her mouth. She stared at Charlie like she was staring at a stranger she no longer recognized. The recording didn't stop. Charlie's voice carried on, calm, calculated, cold. Look, I know you're nervous about the timing, but my gambling debts aren't going anywhere. Those guys don't wait. They don't forget. And they're not the forgiving type if you catch my drift. Gambling debts. Lauren's voice cracked into the silence of my room. Her whisper trembled. What gambling debts? The phone continued, merciless. David's just some lonely old widower, probably grateful for the company. He has no idea what's coming. I watched my daughter's face crumble. She heard her husband's casual dismissal of me, his description of my grief, my loneliness, my kindness, as nothing more than opportunity. The beauty is, he'll never suspect family, Charlie's voice went on. Even if he notices something missing, Lauren will convince him he just misplaced it. Old people, and their memory, you know how it is. Lauren gasped as if she'd been struck in the chest. Her husband wasn't just plotting theft. He was planning to weaponize her trust against her father. Trust me, the recording continued. By Thursday, we'll be clear. I'll tell Lauren we've got a sudden job offer out of state, urgent, can't wait. We'll be gone before the old man realizes what happened. I stopped the recording. The silence that followed pressed heavy on every corner of the room. Lauren stared at Charlie, tears breaking free. Her voice was a whisper barely holding together. Gambling debts? You were going to rob my father? Lauren, listen. You called him a lonely old fool. Her voice broke, louder now, fueled by pain. You were going to steal from him and disappear, dragging me with you as your cover story. Charlie tried to move toward her, hands out in weak defense, but she recoiled like his very presence burned. How much? She demanded. It doesn't matter. How much? Her voice snapped like a whip. His shoulders collapsed. 47,000. Her knees buckled. She caught herself on the doorframe, staring at the man she once promised forever to. You've been lying for months.
About the job.
About our finances. About why we had to stay here. About everything. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? Her voice rose to a shout. By planning to rob my father? By using me as your alibi while you destroyed the man who raised me? Lauren, we can fix this. No, her spine straightened. Steel entered her voice. No, we can't. You planned to victimize my father. You mocked him. You wanted me to believe he was losing his memory while you pocketed his savings. She looked at him as if the very sight sickened her. Get out. Get out of my father's house.
Now.
For the first time since I'd known him, Charlie had nothing to say. He stood in stunned silence, glitter still shedding from his clothes like tarnished snow. But then his face hardened. His voice turned ugly. This isn't finished. Half of everything we own is mine. I'll get my share. You mean half of our debt? Lauren's tone was icy, razor sharp. Because that's all we have, Charlie.
Debt.
Gambling debt I never even knew existed. I'll fight you in court. With what money? She stepped toward him, fearless. You just confessed you owe 47 grand to dangerous men. What exactly are you going to fight me with? His bravado crumbled. His eyes turned on me, full of hate. This is your fault, old man. You turned her against me. No, Lauren answered firmly, standing tall beside me. You did that yourself. When you chose theft instead of honesty. When you mocked my father behind his back. When you lied to me every day for months. Charlie made one last, desperate grab for her heart. Lauren, we're married. We made vows. You broke them, she snapped, pointing to the door.
When you plan to rob my family.
Pack your things and get out. And I watched the moment he finally understood. The game was over. No more tricks. No more manipulation. He had condemned himself with his own words. He left without another word, glitter trailing him like a scarlet letter, proof of his guilt. From down the hall came the angry sounds of bags being stuffed with clothes. Lauren collapsed into the chair beside my bed, exhausted, broken. Dad, I'm so sorry. I brought him into your home. I put you in danger. Sweetheart, I said softly. You couldn't have known. I should have seen it. The calls. The questions about your money. All the signs. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. How long have you known? Since 2 nights ago. I heard the call. I knew I had to protect us both. A weak smile tugged at her lips. The glitter bomb was genius. I chuckled. I wanted him caught red-handed. Or maybe glitter-handed. Through her tears, she laughed, genuine, unguarded. Charlie reappeared in the doorway, 2 bags slung over his shoulders. He still sparkled faintly, like a ruined party decoration. "Lauren, leave your key on the counter." She cut him off, her voice flat. "Don't call me. Don't come near me. My lawyer will speak to yours." He opened his mouth to argue, but thought better of it. A moment later, the front door slammed. His car roared to life. And then he was gone. Lauren and I sat in silence, listening to the night return to stillness. She turned to me, her voice small. "Can I stay here? Just until I figure things out." "This is your home," I told her. "For as long as you need it." 3 months later. I was pouring coffee in the kitchen when Lauren came downstairs, dressed neatly for her new job at the library. She had built her routines back up, piece by piece, with the strength I'd always admired in her. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, sweetheart. Sleep well?" "Like a baby." She poured her coffee and sat across from me. I grinned. "Any regrets about the great glitter trap of March?" She smirked. "Only that you didn't film his face when it went off." Her divorce had been finalized just 2 weeks earlier. Charlie hadn't contested a thing. Hard to argue for property when you're staring at gambling debts and possible criminal charges. "Busy day at the library?" I asked. "Story time at 10. Then I'm helping Mrs. Patterson with her genealogy research." She smiled. "I love it there. Peaceful. Honest. Surrounded by people who actually appreciate books." At the door, she paused.
Thank you, Dad.
"For protecting me. For trusting me when it mattered most." After she left, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, the house finally quiet again.
No tensión.
No lies. No one calculating how to exploit me. Just peace. My phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Forgot to tell you, Mrs. Henderson wants help installing a security system. Words out about your innovative protection methods." I laughed out loud. Maybe I should patent the confetti bomb. Outside, spring spread across Court Elon. My neighborhood looked the same as always, safe, steady, calm. Sometimes justice comes through courts. Sometimes through police. And sometimes it comes from trusting your instincts, setting the right trap, and letting people reveal who they really are. And sometimes justice sparkles.